Ade, how you doing?
Hi, Toby. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm brilliant, mate. I'm brilliant. Thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Yeah, let's kind of dive straight in. Do you want to give a quick background as to yeah, who you are so everyone knows?
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Ade. I study civil engineering at the University of Nottingham, and this summer I'll be doing a summer internship in technology at Citibank.
Very exciting and well done for landing that great role with Citi. Obviously a great company to have on your CV. So you're pretty much set now, right? I mean, you're pretty much you're set now with that
Hopefully,
CV.
hopefully,
Yeah.
yeah. I definitely have to convert it first, but no, it's a relief to get something. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I'm sure very competitive climate as well. So you must have done really well throughout the application process. Before we dive into that, I'm quite intrigued by the tech space and why people want to work there and how we can kind of maybe increase diversity in tech as well. So, what made you want to work in the tech side of things? And tell us a little bit about the role you'll be doing and yeah, why you wanted to work in tech.
Okay, so I guess for me, for like I said, I study civil engineering. I've fortunately did a summer internship in my first year, and I I didn't really enjoy it that much, if I'm being honest. I didn't see myself working as a civil engineer, or at least like in the space that I did. But one aspect of it that I really enjoyed was I was able to work with their technology team, and they were just looking for innovative ways to use technology in civil engineering. And they like introduced me to data and everything related to technology. So I found that interesting. So following that, I in the next year, in my next application cycles, I started looking at technology roles in general. And from there, I started seeing technology being used in financial services, consultancy, insurance, everything. You just realize that technology is used everywhere. So, using my like interest for technology and like my passion for it, I guess that I decided like that those are the roles I was going to apply to. So, as you can imagine, I applied to for me, I applied to anything that was related to technology. I think I applied to over 20 things, 20 different applications this year across the different industries, and fortunately, I was able to get one at City. Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And I was just talking to a tech firm recently, actually, and they say they absolutely love engineering students because you kind of just have that extra level of analytical ability, and it's such a difficult course, right? I'm so glad I didn't have to do engineering. It sounds like such a tough course. Once you do that, everything else is kind of pretty easy, to be fair, isn't it? So, I would love to hear about that. So, if you're doing civil engineering or mechanical or chemical, we need to be thinking about doing other potential career avenues, right? You don't have to go into engineering. It can be
Def-
consulting, it can be tech.
definitely. I think a lot of companies say that their like engineers are sought after. I'm not sure how much I believe that, but I think that the degree itself does definitely make you able to go into different industries, like you said, consultancy or technology. And then with technology, especially because a lot of it is problem solving, a lot of it is very analytical and it's mathematical. The skills definitely do align. I think for me, especially, even going back further, in my first year, I applied to just financial services. The financial services industry is kind of notorious for, taking engineers out of the engineering roles and like trying to lure them into financial services. So before I even started applying to technology, my first initial focus was on front office roles, sales and trading, just the lucrative roles that everyone kind of goes for. And I quickly found out that for me, I didn't find that interesting. Like I couldn't really fake my interest, and I was definitely found out like very quickly. Like when I got further into the application, further into the recruitment applications, they were easily able to suss out that like I wasn't that passionate about financial services from a front office perspective. Um, so that's why I started. Okay, I'm actually genuinely interested in technology, and that is still in the financial services space. Let me try and apply that. So for me, like a little bit of advice that I would give is if you're interested in financial services, there's definitely roles that aren't the typical investment banking, sales and trading, capital market. Like there are roles in technology that you might find more interesting that are aligned to your interest. I think technology is can be something that's maybe a little bit looked down upon, especially in financial services, or it's not as um, it's back office. It's not as like appealing to a lot of people. But for me, I think initially like I just went to that front office because that's kind of where everyone goes. So I'm definitely guilty of that. But if you can open your mind up to it, there are definitely roles available, and yeah, and you'd be surprised how much you're sought after being an engineer for those roles in particular. They really like having people like a diverse range of degrees that come into it. It's not only engineering. There are people who study humanities and other things in that go into technology, because they're not only looking for like that computer science. I think that's the misconception that a lot of people might have, that it's only that computer science or really technical degree that allows you to go into that role. And even though they are looking for those type of people fit a particular role in that whole industry, and there's definitely other more or less technical roles available. So my role is going to be hopefully a bit of both, because again, my background's not that technical, and they're very much aware of that. I'm not doing coding in my degree. So it's going to be a mix of the two, something that is not too technical but definitely has a technical background to it.
Interesting. Yeah, that's good to know, really. And I guess if you've got an engineering background or a different degree other than computer science, you've kind of got an advantage in a way, because you learn the tools from that degree, but then you can learn on the job on the software side or the tech backend side of things, can you? So that kind of gives you a bit of an advantage. Do you have any kind of any fears that you're going to be learning a completely new thing now, or is that just super exciting? Because I imagine other people, like you said, are thinking, oh, I haven't got a computer science degree. Can I do that back end tech side of things?
Definitely. Even like now, I'm thinking about like what I'm going to be doing in the role. I definitely have a little bit of apprehension that I might be a little bit out of depth, but I can speak for Citi. Citi definitely like they knew that they were very much aware of my background, and they still encouraged me to apply. I can't speak for all companies, because some companies for that first summer internship, they might need you to be technical, but they won't hire you, or they made it clear they're not going to hire you if they don't think you can do the role. So I would definitely say there's nothing wrong with applying. Like if you don't ask, you can't get. Like my mom always says that to me. So you definitely should just apply. They will tell you if you're not going to be like adequate for the role. You don't have to put like self-doubt into yourself. For example, for Citi, out of all the applications that I did, they didn't require you to do a coding test, or like so some of the applications, we can go into more detail later on, but some of the applications, as part of the applications, they do like a coding test, which is very basic. It's just to show like what level you're at. But Citi didn't actually even have a test, so that already kind of shows you like how much experience they required for the summer internship anyway, prior to the role. So don't see technology in a role and think that it's an immediate write-off. Definitely do some research, and you can actually see that. I didn't even know that prior to a few weeks before I applied, that Citi weren't one of those companies. So Deloitte are another one, and there are many different companies that don't require you to do a coding specific test in order to make that application. So if technology is of interest to you, there are definitely companies out there that are going to accommodate like your skill set, whether it's really advanced or really basic.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's really, really good advice. And definitely always listen to your mum as well. That's probably the best advice you shared. My mum was a big fan of the podcast, so I always get a listen from her. So shout out to her. It was interesting what you said as well about being sort of found out by the employers. So this actually happened to me when I went for my placement. I went for a placement in asset management in UBS way back in the day. I'm getting old now, so this is like way back in the day, I guess. And clearly, I know that now, but I don't have any interest in that space at all. And I had an economics degree, so I was like, well, it makes sense to apply to asset management at UBS, right? But they could kind of see, and I got to the final round interview, but they could kind of see at that point, this isn't right for you. And I'm so glad they didn't pass me through, because I wouldn't have been happy in that role because it wasn't right for you. So I think that's something to definitely bear in mind. Recruiters and employers at times, because they obviously work in the industry, at times they know more about what's right for you than you do. So if they do not pass you through an application process, it might be for the best. They might be doing you a big favor. So let's dive in. Actually, before we get into the application story, how about finance though? So have you kind of wanted to work in the finance space for a long time? What appeals to you about that?
So after I had my like epiphany that okay, I might not be that cut out for a career in civil engineering. Financial services was kind of like the next thing for me. I did economics A level, and you know I think it's appealing to everyone. Everyone, not everyone, but for me anyway. I wanted to work in London, in the city, so financial services was just kind of appealing to me, and so that's where my initial interest came from. And I think you know they're good. They're known for having good graduate salaries. And just like a good graduate program or 1 or 2 years, and it just will set you up hopefully for later life, even if you don't want to necessarily work in financial services. So that's kind of where my initial interest came from. And then I had my friends surrounded me who were doing spring weeks, doing summer internships, because they're only a year older than me, so I kind of just following what they do and following in their footsteps. And like I said, I had mostly rejections before I even got to any interviews in my first year of applications, majority rejections in that space. I can think it was only one. This was 2019, 2020. So I kind of blamed it on COVID. I said that, oh yeah, I didn't get through because, you know, they were because of COVID. But I later found out that a lot of them still kind of ran programs when they could. But no, I didn't have any success with my applications from that front. But I think I will say that the experience from applying to financial services or just doing applications, even though I found out later on that it's not that I didn't really want to do financial services, definitely did set me up for my applications this year. That experience, I think, was really invaluable because I had things like my CV sorted out. I had things like my cover letter sorted out, and I had a lot of experience in doing applications, which you can't really get from anywhere else other than doing the application. You can't really replace that. Like you can do as much practice doing online tests or doing mock interviews or things like that, but there's nothing like doing the real thing. So yeah, even though I had no success in any of those applications in the financial services, it definitely did set me up for when I decided I'm going to apply for technology this year. And yeah.
100%. Yeah, if you hadn't have gone through those application processes, you probably wouldn't have got this one, right? So it's kind of just part of that journey. Let's dive into that then. So the Citi application process, what were the steps? You know, how did you get on at each point? And it'd be interesting to know maybe afterwards if you did anything different to kind of what you did previously. But yeah, well, how did the application process start? Was it CV or written application?
So I think it probably opened around early October, and it was just motivation questions, 3 motivation questions, I think 250 word max, and a CV that you had to do it. So no cover letter, but I guess that motivation questions kind of replaced the cover letter aspect of it. And then after that, so I think everybody kind of has a funny story with like their successful applications or whatever. So with Citi, I had done that. So then immediately after, you get told if you pass that stage and you do an online test, which is, I think Citi was mostly numerical and maybe a bit of verbal reasoning or something like that. But compared to the rest, I can say Citi was pretty. I don't want to say easy, but it was easier than the rest. It wasn't easy, but it was definitely easier than like it was an online test that it wasn't too difficult. So I did that after I did that application, and which I was told I passed. So I think probably about mid-October, I was told I had passed the online test and that I would find out if I can get progress to the next stage. And then that lull period, weeks go by, days go by, weeks go by, months go by, and you haven't heard, and you just think, okay, you forget about it. So then I probably heard around mid-November to the end of November that I hadn't been progressed into the next stage for this role, for the role that I initially applied for. So okay, I was definitely disappointed, but it was just a rejection amongst all the other rejections that I had other things going on, things that I was getting progressed, so I just moved on. And then a few days later, they'd actually let me know that there'd been an opening for a different role, so a different summer internship role, the role that I eventually got. So okay, I was like, funnily enough, that role wasn't actually available when I made my initial application, but like reading the descriptions and everything, I definitely would have applied to that. And I think this is why I really like Citi. Oh, obviously I like Citi, it's the only one I got, but Citi, they took the time to like maybe see that my skills definitely weren't suited for the role that I applied for. I think it was definitely a more technical role. And they assumed because I had done civil engineering that I wouldn't be I just wouldn't be right for it. So that's why I hadn't been progressed. But this role was maybe a less technical role, which is why they let me know about it. I don't want to say that, that my application was so amazing, they're trying to like move me somewhere else. It could have been a general application that they did to everybody who got rejected from the earlier on, but it was just definitely something that gave me a little bit of confidence that, okay, they acknowledged it and let me know that there was another role available, because you can actually only apply to one role per application cycle. So cool. So I just did that. I didn't have to redo the online test because it was the same test, so I'd already passed.
And then with the online test, just to touch on that, and also you should be super happy, because it's such a competitive place to get a job. I mean, they're definitely not throwing out the offers left, right, and center. So definitely be proud of that. But in terms of the online tests, a few other people mentioned they'll kind of Google around and try and figure out which platforms the company is using and then practice with those. Did you do anything like that, or would you just go in and kind of get it right?
So my experience with online tests, and I guess the advice that I would give is like practicing them is the best. And the way that I practice doing online tests was just doing a lot of applications. So maybe doing applications to companies that I may not have wanting to work for, but I took advantage of doing the test. So I go into online tests pretty confident because of all the practice that I've done. I haven't like gone to, I don't know necessarily what companies do it on like different tests, but because I do engineering, I'm quite confident in my numerical ability, even though like the skills aren't aligned. Like you still have to you can have no like maths in your degree and still do very well in the test. I want to make that clear, but I go into them usually quite confident because of all the experience that I've had. So that's why I think doing as many applications as you can within your capability is good, because you get to practice doing the tests as much as possible. So that's kind of where my that's my advice for when it comes to online tests. But I do know some people who like know the platforms, or they know that the type of questions that they might get prior to the test, because they've made that link. But I just haven't been that aware of any connections necessarily. But definitely like take note if you can, because you never know, you might get asked the same type of question. I've never really come across getting asked the same question, or like the same question asked in a different way, if I'm being honest. But like you never know, there might be a connection there. And to be fair, like if you apply in first year and you apply in your next year, they usually use the same platform. So it's very unlikely that a company will completely revamp their online test process. So definitely just practice in any way you can. I wouldn't say you need to buy courses. Some people do, some people don't. I personally didn't. But an application is free, so you can just do an application to a company that you don't like. It's not going to cost you anything. You can always pull out whenever you want, even if you get progress. Like it's not binding. So definitely just take advantage of the many applications you can do to practice. That's my advice there with that.
Yeah, you're just confident because you got that in your locker, so no need to practice for you. But yeah, no, that sounds really good. And okay, what was the next stage then? So after they kind of rerouted you, what happened next?
Yeah, so after they rerouted me, I found out, so their next stage was a phone interview or a video interview. I think it depends on what department you apply for. So mine was like a first round video interview. So I had to do that in January, and that was about half an hour. I think it was half an hour to 45 minutes long. They said it would be. And yeah, so I'd never done, it was face-to-face as well, fortunately. Oh yeah, Citi didn't have any video interviews, which I guess we can talk about as well later. Video interviews, I've got some experience in that as well, but Citi didn't have any like those online video interviews that, you get asked a question and you've got time to prepare. This one was face-to-face. So yeah, had never really done anything like that before explicitly, but I've done phone interviews with different companies. So I went into that relatively confident, but I definitely prepared a lot for it. Like I really did my research into the company and into the values and all the things that they tell you to do when you're doing that type of application. So I did that. That went well. I passed that, and then a week later, I had to do the assessment center. In the assessment center, it was obviously virtual. So I think typically they would have group exercises, but in our assessment center, we didn't. We just had 3 interviews. One interview was a presentation, and then one was on, I think it was leadership standards, and the other one was a technical/competency type interview, each half an hour long. And then about a week and a half later, you find out the result, and yeah, that was good. So I think I found out probably around mid to early February that they'd given me an offer. So I was definitely happy with that.
Yeah, no, and as I said at the beginning, like that, it's so big. Once you've got a big name like that on your CV, you're kind of you're rolling away now. But just jumping back to the interview, I'm intrigued. So some candidates ask, how do you kind of have that balance between not talking too much, not sort of waffling on, but also keeping the interviewer involved, not being too concise. How did you find that, or what were some of your any interview tips you found, or anything that you found you did well during that process?
So I mean, each interview that I've had, I haven't had too many, but it's been different. It really depends on the person. But for me, I always have to like remind myself that this is just another person. They might have a set of questions to ask you, but I try and keep it as much like a conversation as possible. Not like question answer, question answer, question answer. Earlier on, if you can like break the ice or whatever it is, like just by ask them how their day is, the same way they're going to ask you how your day has been. Like you just have to try and keep it as natural as possible, because it is already awkward it being virtual and not in person. It's awkward for you, but it's also awkward for them. And genuinely, I think that the way that they assess you is not only how you answer the question, but just how you are as a person, and if they can see themselves working with you. Because they're not going to really retain 90% of what, I don't know what the figure is, but they're not going to retain everything of what you say, but they're going to remember how the interview felt and how it came across. So if you can come across as, yourself and just natural and confident. Confidence is the biggest thing. You might not know everything about the company, you might not know everything about the role, but if you come across as confident, not arrogant, but confident, that definitely helps. So that's kind of the mentality that I try my best to go in with the interviews, whilst knowing like the things that you're supposed to know. You can't get in if you don't know the values of the company. They might not ask you explicitly, but in your answers you want to tie that in as much as possible. The classic STAR technique, when you answer your competency questions that everybody talks about, I definitely prepare using STAR, but I can't say that every answer I give is situation, task, action, response. I can't like say that because I just you just go into your mode of answering the question. But if you prepared, you hopefully cover all of those points. And have yours like, I only have probably around 3 set of scenarios that I can develop to fit the question that's asked, but I repeat the same set of scenarios for each interview that I do, because I've like rehearsed that so many times, so I can know it and I can mold it to fit to the answer of the question. So yeah, to have your scenarios like known before you start is great. Also, advice I would give for that, if you can know something that nobody else will kind of know, you can type in Citi into Google and certain things will come up. Like, I'm not saying to go to like the 3rd or 4th page of Google, but go into the website and find something that is a little bit niche, a little bit that you can show, because even if you say that and the person that you're talking to doesn't even know it, but they know that you've done your research, it can come across as quite impressive, which I found. And if you can, like, not everybody has the network or connections, speak to somebody that works there, because they can tell you something that's happening, that's current in the company. Fortunately, I was able to do that. Like, somebody put me in touch with someone who's already working there, and he gave me just something to say if I can fit it into my interview. But he had no idea what I was talking about, but he found it interesting. So that definitely helped. And so that first interview was very similar to the format of the subsequent 3 interviews. The presentation, if you want.
And sorry, just on that, Ade, just on the networking piece, because well, firstly, brilliant advice there. You said a lot of great stuff, STAR technique. If anyone doesn't know that, it's situation, task, action, result, and reflect as well, extra R, so you can kind of say what you learned from that experience. And a lot of other good points you mentioned about kind of just the feeling of the interview and building that rapport, because you're right, people just sort of your brain just drifts off a little bit while someone's talking, or you're kind of in and you're out. You forget which candidate said what, but you're always going to remember that feeling. And if you kind of build up that good rapport, they can teach you a lot of the skills, right? As you said, for your role, they're going to teach you all the tech stuff that you need to know. You're going to learn 99% of things doing the job. So they just want to find the right person that's going to be a great fit for the team and really engaging and so on. But just on the networking element, How did you go about that then? Because this is something I find that a lot of young people aren't doing, because it can feel a little bit inauthentic at times. It can be difficult to do. How did you get around that, and who did you actually go after? Did you go on LinkedIn and find someone in the team already? Did you just know someone from your network? How did that work?
So for this specific one, I was put in contact with two people. Firstly, so just a very close friend of mine knew someone from university when he was who's now working at Citi. So he just put me in touch with that. So not everybody has that option, but SEO SEO London is a company that that they help with BAME
Underrepresented,
students,
yeah.
underrepresented students. So once I informed them, that I'd got into the first interview stage, so they had put me in touch with someone in their own network who I could speak to give me some advice as well. So I think, again, you like you said, it comes across as inauthentic, but if you don't ask, you don't get. So you just have to kind of come up. You just the worst you can get is a no. I can't help you, sorry. Or people might be able to put you in touch with somebody else. So obviously don't shout to everybody that you got an interview, you got an assessment center or whatever, because it might rub some people up the wrong way. But let people know, because you never know how they might be able to help you. If anybody came in contact, asked me, I wouldn't hesitate to put them in contact with somebody that I know. And that's not everybody's like that, but I think a lot of people are willing to help, especially when they, when they've got there themselves. People just like to help other people out. I would just say, when it comes to LinkedIn, I don't reach out that often on LinkedIn. Or I actually tell a lie. I do that now because I've tried to reach out to people who I might be working with. But prior to that face-to-face in your uni, or just ask your friends. You never know who might be able to help you or who they can put in touch, because a connection can be a friend of a friend of a friend. It doesn't, to me anyway, it doesn't matter, as long as you can just speak to them and say, I'm doing an interview at Citi. Do you have any advice for when you did it? They might be able to tell you something, because I asked just even people from my old school that I hadn't talked to for a while, that I knew that had done a summer internship or worked there. I just asked if you have any tips, and some did, some didn't. I think some of the tips that I did get from them definitely did help and put my mind at ease with the application.
Amazing. Yeah, that's brilliant. I think, this is one thing looking back for me. I didn't do a ton of networking as I was trying to get some of my early career roles. But if I was to have to do it again, that's the first thing I'd do, probably just, right after an application or just before even. And I think, a lot of people aren't doing that. So that could really make a big difference. Use your network. For you, it's someone that you knew at university that could put you in touch with someone. You definitely don't ignore your core network. And it feels like, they say it's a cliche, but they say your network is your net worth. But it's kind of true, really. The richest people seem to have the best well connected networks, right? Like that's how you get access to opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of the you wish it wasn't that way. You wish it could be completely based off merit or things like that. I'm not saying that a connection helped me get it, but you just that little piece of information. I remember it to this day. I might not even mention it again, but that little piece of information that person who I didn't know gave me, that I mentioned in my interview, once I, had said that, and the response that I got from that little piece of information, it gave me confidence. Honestly, it might have been completely irrelevant, but it gave me a bit of confidence, especially going into it. So don't be afraid to reach out. It can be a bit daunting. Again, you don't want to come across as inauthentic, but the worst thing you can get is a no, or someone not reply to your message on LinkedIn. You move on. It's not the end of the world.
Sure. And to some extent, that's a microcosm of what I'm trying to do with this platform or with this podcast. Like, if someone's not able to get someone at Citi or doesn't know anyone in that world, then they can listen to this podcast for 45 minutes or whatever, and get a good feel for it. So without having done that, maybe that just makes that little bit difference for the application process. So you're helping me kind of democratize that access to these opportunities, and network is important, yes, of course, but let's try and interview as many successful candidates as we can and give everyone the keys to success for each of those companies. So so you were going to say, so assessment center was next.
Yeah, so with the assessment center, I had three interviews. I think there were 3 or 4 other people there, but
Wow,
we
it's
didn't
a lot of
we didn't.
interviews.
Yeah, yeah, it was again, I hadn't done it. It was my first assessment center, so nervous, yes, but like you just there wasn't really time to really dwell on it. You just had to go with it. So like I said, there were 3 other candidates there, maybe 4, but we didn't have any interaction. I think if it wasn't virtual, maybe there would have been a group exercise. I know some companies have done group exercises virtually, but Citi just didn't. So yeah, they were half-an-hour interviews. Okay, I'll talk about the presentation because that's the only thing that some people might not have that much experience with. But I think they gave us all 55 minutes. They sent us the information then and there, and we had 55 minutes to prepare a presentation on some like 10 pages of information they gave us and like a topic question, and then we had 15 minutes to deliver it and then another 15 minutes to discuss with the interviewer, which was again something that not you don't have that much experience doing. I certainly didn't have that much experience doing. The one thing for that interview, for that aspect of the interview, that I said came in my favor is in my preparation. It just so happened that in my preparation that I had done for like the assessment center and my interview prior, that it kind of aligned with one of the topics that we were talking about. So I think I saved myself a lot of time because I had literally had it in a Word document, what I was going to say, or at least some preparation that I could use. So, and I'd already obviously prepared for it. So I knew it. I didn't have to learn it in that 55 minutes. So again, that gave me a bit of confidence. That can't happen everyone. Like that might have not, I could have had a completely different question, but I would say, with that, just save your notes, save your preparation, save your cover letters. That's another thing that I'd love to say, because you just never know when it will come in handy. Fortunately, it was virtual, so it was literally on the computer I was using, so I just had to copy and paste it into my presentation. And yeah, so that definitely helped with me with that application. Yeah, it's probably lucky, I guess, but I can't complain. Like it was just, I just used it. It was just there. So
Yeah.
and then yeah, the other interviewers, again, they were nice. They weren't trying to catch me out, which I think technology. I can't speak for all companies, but I feel like they're genuinely quite nice. I think the front office roles, at least what I've heard, is they're so, because it's so competitive, they have to be really ruthless. They're really, the questions that they ask in the interviews, they really have to try and catch you out or like see whether you know it. But a lot of my interviews were very just conversation based. A lot of them just wanted to find out why I was trying to come from civil engineering and technology. There isn't a direct link, so they wanted to understand, you know, what's driving me, what's my passion, and see if I was able to demonstrate it, and like what I could like bring to the role. What do I know about technology? What do I know about coding? Because I still had to, I have a little bit of experience that let me say, like I've tried to do it on the side, so I had to demonstrate any projects that I've done. But yeah, they were just trying to find out that was just the key part of my interview, that like kind of ran through every single interview. Like they knew I was doing civil engineering, so like why are you coming from civil engineering to technology? So any engineer, if you're not, or any role, if it's not explicitly, you know, computer science, and you're applying for this, you know, make sure you know your why, make sure you know why, and you can demonstrate and what you've done to show that you can, you know, you'll be able to perform in a technology related role. And yeah, so yeah, that interview, oh, another thing as well actually is the technical interview. So they asked technical questions. I can't remember the questions explicitly, but I think I got asked about 3 or 4 technical questions, like what is malware, like technology related questions, and I couldn't answer them all, like being honest, because you know, I was studying civil. It wasn't like if they asked me something about civil engineering, I couldn't just but in my we had already built up that rapport. He's like, okay, I know you studied, but I still have to ask these questions. So it wasn't I couldn't answer them. I couldn't like answer them well. I answered them as best as I could, but I couldn't say that I gave the right answer for each one. But I still answered them. Didn't let that throw me off. It was obviously a bit annoying, but it was only one of my 3 interviews. So even if that interview was bad, which overall I didn't think it was, even though I couldn't answer it, I still had 2 other interviews to try and impress. So yeah, don't let that, a bad thing in the interview or you not be able to answer the question, throw you off. Like I said, I couldn't answer the question, but I came across as somebody who wanted to learn, because I asked him like, oh, if it was relevant anyway, could you tell me what that was? It's just showing that you're engaged, that like your ability and willingness to learn. It was a conversation. It was very relaxed, but you still had to ask, and what he needed to ask, and yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, because there's naturally going to be dips throughout the day. Like assessment centers are tough, like it's not they don't make it easy, on purpose. So there's definitely going to be periods of time where it's a little bit more tough and you struggle a little bit, but you've just got to brush it off, move on to the next one. No one's going to go like 100%, got every question, 100% right. Often there is no right or wrong anyway, but no one's going to feel 100% about every single question. So you just got to keep it moving and kind of keep learning and just enjoy the day as well. Just trying to enjoy the day and get through as best you can. So that's really good. And again, it's so good what you've done there, getting through that process. It's great that you've kind of got in at this early career level, because this is going to set you up nicely when looking at grad schemes as well. You mentioned that up until that point, you'd had a few rejections as well with your application, as everyone does. So it's important to share that. What kept you kind of motivated during that time, or how were you able to not kind of get too down with some of the rejections you faced, and kind of, I guess, what did you learn from that experience that helped you get that role, do you think?
I think it's great to be able to like look back on the application cycle in hindsight. At the beginning of it, I would have never thought Citi would be where I ended up, and at the beginning of it, I wouldn't have thought that I would do 20 plus applications and literally only get one. But I think because I did so many applications, even if I got a rejection, there was always something else going on in the background. So I didn't put all my eggs in one, but I didn't say at the beginning, I want to work at Citi, or I want to work at Goldman Sachs, or I want to work at Deloitte. And if I don't get into the big four or whatever it is, then it's all over. So I always had something else in the background. I think I liken it to a lot of people, with the university applications that, they go to apply to UCAS, and, they've got their top choice. And so you only apply for maybe one that's outside of your typical grades. Then you maybe apply 3 or 4 that match your grades, and then you apply for a safety. I kind of treated it the same way. So I applied for ones that, I thought maybe were a bit out of reach, some that I thought were within reach, and some that I, pending everything going well, I think I could have confidently got. Obviously it didn't work out like that, because I literally only got one. The ones that I thought maybe I'm more likely to get, I didn't even get. But that's kind of how I approached it. And really and truly, it's like the rejections, it's really disheartening, especially for my first year. I got pretty much all rejections, so that kind of you build resilience to them. But it's, if you don't get a spring week, it's not the end of the world. I know people who got a summer internship without a spring week. If you don't get a summer internship, again, I don't think it's the end of the world. I know people who have got a summer internship, or who have got a graduate job without a summer internship. It's just having in the back of your mind that, like, you're preparing yourself for when you finally get that application that you can be really confident in. And like I said earlier on, the skills that I learned in applying, like I pretty much save every cover letter or motivational question thing that I've written. So it makes every application that I do a little bit easier. Every online test that I've done makes the next online test a little bit easier, because I know how to answer the question. So everybody's time is going to be different. I know people who got 3 spring weeks, who got 5 summer internships, who get all the everybody's thing is just a little bit different. And I honestly think a lot of it is just down to luck as well. You can imagine how many applications there are for one place. There are probably 3 or 4 different ADEs with the same qualifications, with the same ability to do the job. It's just a luck thing. Like if you applied 1 week earlier or 1 week later.
I disagree with that there. You are unique. I think you're a very humble guy, which is good, and it's going to take you a long way. But there are things about you that are truly unique to you. Even like your journey of doing the civil engineering thing and then switching that's given you some unique skills that a lot of other people are not going to have. And just thought, there's probably so many things that we don't know about, your athletics, your hurdles, your upbringing that has kind of made you really unique. And as you said earlier, it's the answers you're given in the interviews, and you're not planning all of those things out by the letter. And Citi are looking for a certain type of person, and you kind of definitely adhered to that by the answers you were given. So I definitely wouldn't play that down at all. I think you're very, everyone is unique, and it's interesting again what you said, and that some of the roles that you thought was a little bit easier to get, you didn't get, and then you got the really difficult one. And that just goes to show, like, it's just about the compatibility between you and the
Yeah,
employer. It's not
yeah,
like a university where there's a kind of a ranking there. You know, you probably got a role that was way more competitive than one that wasn't as competitive, that you weren't a nice, you didn't align as well with that role for whatever
yeah,
reason. So
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I agree with you there. Like, if you can, you just need to just show what makes you a little bit unique. You don't want to, you kind of have to try and stand out, because there are going to be, a lot of people who go to university with a degree, or on track for a 2-1 or whatever it is. So it's just what makes you a bit, and if hopefully, like, naturally that will come across. But if you're not somebody who, you need to put more effort in bringing that out. What makes you, what makes you, what makes you unique in the application. And like, one thing I would say is, as well, is, I think once you get to the interview stage, it's fair game for everybody. Like, it's if once you get to that point, like, it's very much within your grasp. If you could get there that far, like, there's something about you. So from that then on, don't doubt yourself in any respect, and just do your best to, because I've got to that interview. I've had interviews prior where I've had a little bit of self-doubt, and I just haven't come across as well as I wanted to come across, and didn't get it in the end. It's like Citi is one that I can, quite confidently say that I came across exactly how I wanted to come across. And yeah.
why do you think you had that self-doubt, out of interest? Why?
Oh, I think there's a lot of, this is diverse hire, so I think it's there's a lot of, coming from my background, I wouldn't say, just being like a black or ethnic minority. You might not think but a lot, especially so when it comes to financial services, there is the stigma that there aren't a lot of people from that background in it. So you kind of already feel a little bit out of place. Even like, funnily enough, like for my interviews, I take my hair out, I have it in an afro, because I don't want my interviewer to judge me before I've even been able to speak. I don't recommend anybody do that. Like, you obviously want to work somewhere where you feel comfortable, don't get me wrong. But so for some interviews, I keep it like this. It depends how much I get. But like, when I got Citi, I was like, I really want it. Let me just take my hair out. And that's that. Just be comfortable. Like, I was comfortable with my hair out. If you're not, then don't. So yeah, I think it's just there's just this, like, it's an internalized self-doubt, because you don't see many people from this background, or from that, like, get those positions. And I think that's what stops a lot of people making that application in the first place, because they're like, I don't know many, none of my friends, like, I have a lot of black friends, none of them are really, like, in those roles. Like, what are the chances of me getting it? After the events of last year especially, I can confidently say that a lot of these companies almost have to admit, like, a certain amount of black and ethnic minorities into these summer internship, into these graduate roles, just for themselves, to prove that they're not discriminating. So that already should tell you that, there's a place for you, that they almost have to give. They're not gonna not give it to you because of the color of your skin or whatever like that. So take advantage of that, which is definitely something that I did coming into this year. I was like, okay, a lot of these companies are putting out statements that they need to hire X amount. Let me be one of those X amount that they have to hire. So yeah.
And I guess I also don't want it to go the other way now, in terms of, like, so yes, employers are focused on diversity and inclusion, but we're still talking about very competitive companies, and I don't see this often at all. It's in terms of quotas, it's more about, we want to attract a more diverse applicant pool, and then from there it's still a meritocracy as to who still got to have the strength and the merits for the role. But having said that, employers are now serious about reaching you, and hopefully there's going to be less of that kind of, well, hopefully there's no discrimination at all, but less of an unconscious bias, because it's more of a conscious thought now.
Of course.
So that's yeah, and then that's a positive. And there's many more programs as well that employers are running. Google have their Black Leaders program. SEO London great platform. Obviously, the platform I've built as well, so, trying to change some of that. And yeah, we want to do exactly kind of what you've just touched on, increase the number of, and it's not even always about the increase in the number. It's just about sometimes showing. So, people might be thinking of what you've just said, but now you've got this role at Citi, and you've come on here and you kind of shared your stories, and that you had your own worries and rejections in the past as well, and that they can kind of be successful as well, no matter what they look like. So hopefully by having a really diverse range of faces on this podcast and on this YouTube channel, we can really start to change that narrative in tech and finance and whatever industry. So, and you're gonna get to the top and help influence that as well from Citi. So before we wrap up, and this has been fantastic, is there anything we didn't cover that you wanted to share, or any other kind of words of encouragement for anyone else? Anything else you wanted to add before we close out?
I think within the last year and a bit is when I've started getting into technology. I just love to encourage, not just mostly Black and ethnic. I just want to encourage a lot of people to apply, to just don't sleep on technology. That's kind of what I want to say. I think it's such a growing industry. I think there's going to be so many opportunities in the future, and I didn't know this a year ago, or when I was applying for front office or sales and trading, whatever it is, but I'm so glad that I found out now. The earlier that you can realize that's something that you want to do, the better. And yeah, I would definitely just encourage people to apply. There are programs out there to help you with that application, like diverse hires, SEO, rare recruitment. There are companies out there, so just go and access them. They're not always going to come to you. You need to take some initiative and go to them. And definitely, I've come across so many people who just haven't applied because they don't think they're going to get it, and I even think that they're more qualified than me to get some of these roles. Honestly, just go for it. Because there are so many opportunities out there. There are it's not just the Goldman Sachs, the JP Morgan, the Morgan Stanley. All these companies have summer internships. Like I said at the beginning of my applications, maybe there were 5 to 10 companies. By the end of it, there was I knew of 30 companies that were running some summer internship programs. So it's just about taking some. Don't over apply yourself. Don't you have a degree to do and things like that, but definitely take some initiative in seeking out these opportunities and just apply, because I think there's a role for everybody out there. It's just about finding it sometimes. Yeah,
I love that. That's a great way to wrap up. Don't sleep on technology. I like that line. That's going to be a good line. And do go out and get that tech role. Let us know when you get one of these amazing tech roles off the back of this podcast. And yeah, hopefully that was really helpful. I think you did a terrific job there. I just want to add in as well, just for tech, for anyone who does want to get into the tech world, Clubhouse has been a really interesting way to engage with employers. I've got a club on there now called the Diverse Early Career Club, or you can just find me on there. Toby, you're going to pay. But we kind of we've had Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Activision, lots of different tech companies on there that join the stage, and you can kind of put your hand up and ask them questions, network and just learn more about their organization. So yeah, check out Clubhouse. But Ade, thanks so much for joining. Honestly, that was terrific. Really appreciate that, and all the best for the rest of your career. I'm sure it's going to be really successful.
Thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Yeah, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or whatever it is. And there's also a startup that I work with called Coding with Codex, and they have really good introductory courses to Python for all levels and beginners especially. So if that's kind of where you want to start, and if that's what you want to be your that thing that makes your application a bit different, I definitely recommend it. But thanks, Toby. Toby does so much help for so many people that I've known. I just want to let you know. So definitely reach out to him. Yeah, he's definitely he's doing his best to democratize that whole application system process for people, and I really like what he's doing. So that's why I've come on here. So yeah, just want to say thank you again.
Love it. Sounds great. Let's leave it there, Adi. Thanks so much.